So today we're going to paint these Indian blankets, which are so much fun to paint. I found these at the Tulsa Garden Center about a year ago. They were so plentiful, so much fun, and I've painted them before, so I thought we would paint them again. Or at least I would paint them again and talk a little bit about how we're going to do this. So again, I've got my verticals, my horizontals. I look at my picture here, decide where to place my flower, and I'm probably going to start about right down here and along here, maybe like this. Just some straight lines to indicate where these petals are going to be. So something that's going to be different for us in this particular painting of this flower is that these petals are really in groupings. Unlike our black-eyed Susans, you know, they were pretty much individual petals, and these are really just in these groupings of petals together. So that's how we're going to draw them. We're not going to be specific in each individual petal. And the same way when we paint them, we're not going to be that specific. Maybe some here and there, but otherwise when we look at this flower, especially from a distance, we see these groupings of petals really pretty much all together. It's down just a bit. And I even have some over here to the outside of this one, or to kind of the very edge of the panel. And I'm going to put them in because I think it makes a nice composition. So I'm going to look at my center and look at this big, fun, fluffy center. That's one of the things that I love about these flowers, are these really fun, fluffy centers. And of course, we've got then this wonderful light green in the middle. That's gonna, this doesn't have to really be drawn out, but I'm just gonna put this in here so I know approximately where it's at. So that's all I'm gonna do for the drawing. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I have pre-mixed my colors, and I'll show you what I have. I have kind of a darker reddish orange, lighter orange. These are both with quinacridone red and cadmium yellow. Then I've got a pink, which is really going to help make this flower sparkle. And so that's more quinacridone red with some cadmium yellow, less yellow, so it leans to the pink, and white. I also have a dark red purple. I'll show you how we use that. Have just pure cadmium yellow like we used last week with our black-eyed Susans. Got a little bit darker value of that, where I just took a little bit of this purple, pulled it up, and put some of the yellow in it to darken my yellow. I've got some darks, dark greens, mid-tone green, a little bit of this lighter green for our center. And then I also have made up this kind of bluish green. If you look at these leaves, you really see a bluish tone to them that are just adds to the beauty and supporting the beauty of this flower. And I have my center mix, which is the mix of our Naphthol red and some green, and it's exactly the same mix that we used last week for our Black-Eyed Susans. I also have a little bit of this kind of yellow ochre, cad yellow with white, and I'm just going to throw some of that down here where I see it. These are, again, like last week, very abstract shapes, but we're going to put a lot of that in this week. Something else I want to show you guys, remember with our first session, when we did our color board, we did a color study. So I did a color study for this flower today. I mixed my paints, and then I did this color study on just a piece of paper. I highly recommend doing this before you start painting, because as I did this, I made changes in my mixtures. So it is so much better to see how your mixtures are, laying them down, and then deciding, does that need to go lighter, darker? What else do I need to do? So I made today various changes in my mixtures that I didn't feel like was what I wanted. So again, something to think about. I really recommend it. It saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of wasted paint. Saves a lot of scraping down and starting over when you decide that your mixtures aren't correct. So I'm actually, I do think I want to kind of darken this up here just a little bit, like we normally do with our underpainting. And I am going to pull out mainly where I know that my yellow paint is going to be. Pull out the lights with your paper towel dipped in some Gamsol, and remember, we just pull that out. And as we are doing this, it just helps us with our drawing. This is all very loose. And I'll come up here too, where these little hints of flowers are. Up here. So now I'm going to get started. So I'm going to start with my cadmium yellow, just like we did last week. And really doesn't matter where you start. I think I'm going to start right here with this grouping. Now I'm going to say something. These flowers have these petals underneath. Believe me, that can get tedious and burdensome to try and paint those. So I'm going to edit them out. Anything to kind of edit, make things a little bit easier to paint, to draw. And it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter if we have exactly the petals, just exactly like we see it in the photograph. This one is just a little bit darker, so I'm going to wait on that for just a bit. Bring these down just a bit. I think I've got them got my drawing a little too high. And I'm just loosely putting these in. So I go where the tip is, I'm looking at that, and I'm just bringing it down. I'll probably let these kind of go off of the canvas. Looking at where this is and then where my next petal starts. I've got a V right here. So I'm going to do this. Comparative drawing. These are slightly darker here, a little slightly darker tone. So I'm going to reach over here with the mix that I made up for some darker tones for my yellow, and kind of come down here. Again, there's some actually petals back here. No, I'm deciding not to draw them right now. Might at some point, you never know. But right now I'm just going to edit them out. And come down right here. Just do these loosely. This is really, you know, we're just wanting to do an impression. That's what impressionism is. You're doing an impression. You're not trying to do the exact photo that we see. An impression or impressionism actually, when you see an impressionist painting, it looks actually more realistic a lot of times than a painting that is extremely detailed. Because when we're looking all around us, we're not really seeing the details. We're just seeing the impression of what's around us. Okay. So I'll go ahead and just knock these in here. So then the next thing I would do is I would take my orange and I'm going to start with my lighter orange. I have a darker redder, kind of reddish orange, and then a lighter mid-tone orange. So I'm going to start with that because that's where I see it right at the tips here before the yellow starts. So pull that in. Right here. Obviously, I'm not being careful at all. I am just letting this orange go right up to the yellow, pulling it around, letting it blend. I'm also looking at my photograph for my drawing. And, you know, again, something to think about is that these petals are groupings. So I'm just going to bring some of this together. These petals can continue to be defined as you go along with your painting. Right now, I am just trying to get paint on the canvas, and all of this will change as I go. It's just a back and forth. I'm going to go back up here, go ahead and put some of this in. So again, these petals don't look well defined. That's a part of the process. So now I'm going to go into a little bit darker as this moves toward, these petals move toward the center. They're going to be moved to really a kind of a darker orange. So I'm going to start putting some of that in. And I may decide to kind of start defining some of these a little bit more. As I put this in. Now this right here is very dark, so I'm going to get my red right here, but I know that I'm going to be darkening this up. Just all one stroke right here to form this group of petals. And then we have this grouping here. I'm going to need to cut in when I do my background for those. I'm just going to stick this right along here. I know this will need to be cut in. And I may just take a rag and kind of wipe that out like that. And this red is just really right where we're getting closer to the center, because these petals coming out of the center are going to be warmer in tone than the outside part. And one of the main reasons for that is that flowers, as they are exposed to weather, to sun, to rain, to weather, and as they age and get older, just like us, they get a little grayer. So all of the rich warmth, like a red, is going to be closer to the center. And then as this goes, the petals go out, they're exposed to the sun and the rain, they're going to get cooler in tone. So I'm going to go ahead, I think I'm going to go ahead Actually, I need to pull down a little bit of red up here too. These don't have a lot of emphasis. They're just meant to be a little draw of the eye along your canvas and add some interest, but otherwise not much of any detail. I'm going to go ahead and put the center in, and then we're going to continue with some other fun colors. So I'm looking at my drawing in comparison, and I'm just going to lay this down. Cannot overemphasize enough about looking at your subject when you're painting, especially with your initial block in. And I am just getting this right up to the edge of my petals and just dragging it into them. And I'm going to put in this green in the middle, and I'm not being at all particular about how I'm going to lay this in. I'm just going to get it in. I'm going to let it mix some with the brown that's around it, because it is integrated into the center, into the brown. Go back over. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I have a little bit of purple, and I am going to take that along some of this edge here and bring that down where I see darks. Just here on this part of the petals that are coming out of the center. It's sort of darker tones, and they have a little bit of a purple tone to them. Just kind of taking my brush and just gently going along the outside edge even of my center with this purple. And then I can go back maybe take my darker orange, kind of just refine that a bit where I put the purple. Take my brush, kind of pull it in. here. And then I'm going to go back to my yellow, kind of pull some of that back in to get my tips defined a little bit better. Just using thick paint. I'm not even going into my gel at this point. I'm going to kind of define this grouping right here where the edge is, pulling that yellow around. Same way right here. Pulling some yellow around just to get a little definition. This petal is really tucked underneath here. I can pull this yellow around up here. Defines my petal a bit. And then something else I want to show you is I have my pink. And pink, I am going to lay right on top of these petals where I see some light hitting them and the petals are turning and it is lighter. So this is kind of where the magic starts. I'm not going all over them, just slightly. But with orange, if I just do a lighter orange, it's just, in paint, it just does not look right. And pink, actually, when you see orange in light, you will see some pink tones. So it really adds a sparkle to our petals. And again, it's only where you see the lights of these petals. So just in small amounts. I'll even take it and use it right here on the edge. This one as it's turning. There on my canvas I want to get rid of. These things happen. So I might go back, kind of knock off the edges of some of this pink. Get it a little bit blended into the other colors. Really kind of take a dry brush, and I say dry brush, I just kind of wiped off my brush with a paper towel so I can kind of go back over and knock some of that down. And I'll just put a little bit up here, my pink. And then of course, we would use the background to define our petals more. And I'm just gonna do a little bit of that. You know, especially right here and here and here. These are just little bits, little strokes of background that will help kind of define this petal. You don't need a lot, but I'm looking at this right here. It's really got kind of that bluish tone, and I'm going to put that in. Same way right about here. I'm just taking my brush and just cutting these petals in. And I see a little one right here. And again, this just gives a little separation to really start seeing these petals. I'm going to go with a little bit darker green right here, actually here and here. So and I'm just really dragging my brush slightly onto the petal, because I know that I can go back and lay some of this petal color back over it, but it just helps. In fact, I can even take my finger and just go like that. And it helps really blend the really border of my petals into the background. It softens the edges. So I'm just going to bring it around, kind of soften this edge, just like that. Same way over here. Actually, I see a little bit right here that I think I'm gonna just stick that in. It's just kind of a little triangle. When I put that in, then you can see the separation. I will probably even put this a little bit darker right up here. I'll do that in just a minute. Just cutting these petals in, getting our edges soft. This petal right here is underneath this one. I'm not going to put much to show that, but I am going to get a little bit darker tone of, well, actually a little bit of my purple. I'm going to bring that down so you can see by adding that, it gives some definition to both of these groupings of petals. I can take some lighter, my lighter orange, bring that back in. Some yellow. Some green and kind of cut this just like this. And pull it into the grouping so it looks like there's two petals there. So, I've also got a stem coming down. I'm going to want to show that. I'm going to take actually a little bit of brown with my green, because this is pretty brown here. The stem, it's a pretty warm stem. So I'm just going to pull this down. this orange and go back over. And add some more pink again. And of course I will continue with my background. You know, I also have these tones here that I'm going to mix up, and I'll be putting some of that in, probably with my palette knife, like what we did last week. And just after I get some of these green leaves of various darks, midtones, and a lot of the blue leaf like we're adding here, then I'll probably come back and get some of this in with just a palette knife. It's very abstract and loose, which is going to add just some variety, brings your eye around the painting. I might even put some down here. So again, the background is when you can be really creative and kind of have fun with it. Just bring my background around, get these negative shapes in, and then you're really going to start to see your flower come alive. Okay, so you guys need to get started, and I think that you are going to absolutely fall in love with painting Indian blankets.